All right, this next tissue type, number 3, is going to be muscle tissue. And for location, the more commonly known location is that they're attached to bone by tendons. And they're also found in the walls of hollow organs. For example, like they're in the walls of the stomach, in the walls of the esophagus. If you guys have heard of that word peristalsis, when you're swallowing, how that food moves down in that like wave-like motion down your esophagus, that's the smooth muscle acting there. And so we'll see muscles there as well. Muscle tissue there as well. And again, in most organs in the body. And then the function of muscle tissue is movement, which means like contraction. So movement and contraction, or you could say / contraction because they're pretty much the same thing. I kind of went through my little margin a bit. Oh well. Okay, and so let's draw a couple of types of muscle tissue. There are 3 types of muscle tissue found throughout the body. The first and most commonly known one is skeletal muscle tissue. So when you're going to the gym and working on building your muscles, this is the one you're working on. Weird thing that actually took me a long time in my life to understand is that if you notice, like, so this right here is one skeletal muscle cell. Here's another skeletal muscle cell. Here's another. They're really long. All skeletal muscle cells are really long so that they can contract and make movement. And so each one of these cells, so like again, that's one whole cell. And in this one skeletal muscle cell, there's going to be all these things called striations. And we'll get to that in Unit 3, like what these striations are from. But notice there's just tons of them. And so then I'll go to my next muscle cell. My next skeletal muscle cell and draw striations there. And then I'm going to go to my third and draw striations there. So they're really long cells. There's 1, 2, 3. And the nuclei are just scattered throughout. And something that's interesting about skeletal muscle cells is that they're multinucleated, meaning there's lots of nuclei in one cell, not just one, like we've seen in all these other types of cells. So we'll label that skeletal. Maybe I should zoom in a bit. Okay, the next type of cell is smooth muscle tissue, or the smooth muscle cells found in smooth muscle tissue. And these are also going to be really long, but they're kind of like that eye drop shape we used up here with the simple squamous. But again, notice, or simple squamous, but again, notice that these are like really long and more spread out. Okay, and these are each going to have one nuclei, and these you would find like inside hollow organs, like in the stomach or in the esophagus, helping with peristalsis and pushing that food down. These are involuntary, right? So like if I asked you to move your muscle tissue right now, you could, but you couldn't necessarily move your stomach muscle tissue. That would be where the smooth muscle tissue is found. And so it's involuntary, just like our third type, which is also involuntary because your heart has the third type in it, and that's constantly pumping on its own. The cells and muscle tissue in the heart are called cardiac muscle tissue, and they have tons of mitochondria to keep providing it with energy to keep pumping. And so these are similar to skeletal muscle tissue because they're nice and long too. A little bit shorter though, and they're branched. So it's kind of hard to draw branching. I'll do my best. Okay, something like that would be fine. And then in addition to being branched, they also have these things that are kind of unique feature called intercalated discs, which separate the cells. So we have branch cells and more normal cells all throughout. So each one of these, that is one cell. This is one cell. This is one cell. This is one cell. So that's why they're different from skeletal, which are really long. And each one would have one nuclei. They're not multinucleated. Okay, and that's cardiac. So those are our 3 types of muscle tissue and the cells they are made up of.